Hey everyone, welcome back to Kothcast, the show where we talk about anything and everything. Today, my guest is BenTheLooney.
Yep, BenTheLooney, artist, YouTuber, all around nice guy, etc., etc.
Hey, yeah, no, well, normally I'd ask you to introduce yourself, but you already did, so that's good. Okay, so you're an animator, a cartoonist, basically, right?
Yeah, you could say that. I did some animation a couple of years ago, got a little impatient with it, so now I mostly just make artwork.
Hmm. Did you do comics?
I'm planning on doing comics eventually. I got a bunch of original characters I want to make a series around, so
Oh, cool.
hopefully,
Okay.
hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah. So I find it interesting that you seem to like I liked your channel basically what we were talking about with shows and cartoons and art, and you seem to like my channel, which is interesting because you're not actually a furry.
Well, you just talk about a lot of interesting topics that I agree with, so that's what drugged me into it. I don't care what you like to jerk off to or anything.
Right.
I'm
Okay.
I'm pretty tolerant when it comes to stuff like that.
Cool. Great. All right. It's interesting that you mentioned that. I think that s- we kind of how we met each other was through the Twitter outrage troop over the like if drawing underage characters is child porn.
Yeah, it was a friend of mine who uh, shared with me your video called "Art is Art,"
Right,
and
okay.
that's how I was introduced to your channel. And I'm like, finally, somebody who's making sense.
Yeah. I find it I actually wanted to ask you as someone outside of the furry community, do you find that it's mostly artists who are like it's not child porn, let us draw whatever we want, and it's mostly people who aren't artists who like have no connection to art who are saying that it's wrong and evil?
For the most part, but I do know a lot of elitist artists out there who flat out refuse to draw that kind of stuff, and they pretty much will stick a knife in you if you draw and participate in that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So there is some tension in the community.
Right. Yeah, I was looking through a lot of furry artists, and it seemed like all the artists, for the most part, were the ones that were okay with it, which makes sense because the artists are going to be the ones that are big on freedom of expression,
Right.
and everybody else. But I just found it was kind of funny. It's like, oh, you want to control like people outside of the like artist community want to control what the artists do, but if they were inside the artist community they'd see it differently. It's like kind of such an obvious sort of I don't even know what to call it, like a mentality
Right.
shift
Yeah.
based on that one thing, not based on whatever moral hangups they think they have.
Yeah. Because and I do know of some artists who flat out refuse to be associated with some artists because they don't agree with what they draw, which I'm okay with. I mean, obviously, people are free to like or not like whatever they want, but what I take issue with is when they start to harass other artists who do it and like stuff like that, dox their personal information. It's
Yeah.
like, uh, come on, man, it's just drawings for Pete's sake.
Yeah. So here's a question. So we talk about a lot of like freedom of expression and freedom of speech. That's what we're talking about. So, what's the line between voicing your opinion of like protest against someone doing something and harassment?
Harassment is when you start to personally attack people and but it's one voicing your opinion would be like, I don't like this, here's why I don't like it, and stuff like that. Harassment is when you flat out go to people, whether it's private or in public and stuff like that, and flat out uh go after them for the sheer purpose of making them feel bad and just trying to make it look like, oh, I'm the knight in shining armor, I'm the hero on the high ground, and stuff like that. That's harassment.
Yeah.
If you just made a tweet saying I don't like this kind of art because such and such, cool, you're free to do that. But when you start to tag people and say I don't like you and what you represent, I hate you, I would go kill yourself and stuff like that, then that's when it's going too far.
Okay. Yeah, I've always been trying to find where that. I'm trying to like mentally reconcile, I guess, what that line is, because we talk about people talk about freedom of speech, and then in the same sentence they're like, I believe in free speech, so you're not allowed to tell me that you don't believe in free speech, or like some shit like that. It's like, wait a second. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, I get you. I love it that it's like the people who try to go after other people for doing stuff they don't agree with. It's like they forget that if you're going to preach free speech, you gotta acknowledge that there are going to be people who disagree with you, and they're just as entitled to those freedoms as you are.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
They're entitled to try to take away their own freedoms, I
yeah.
guess.
Yeah, it's a famous quote that freedom of speech, it doesn't protect what you believe in, it protects what you don't believe in.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. People kind of forget that. I feel like people, I don't know, I don't pay that much attention to what it's like outside of the furry community, but people seem to have, in the furry community, seem to have forgotten what tolerance is.
Right.
That's a big thing. I'm actually making a video on. I'm actually that video is going to come out before this, so might be kind of odd if people watch that video and then this. But people have kind of forgotten that tolerance means tolerating things that you don't like. It doesn't. I don't know what they think it means.
Uh-huh.
They're
Well,
like
I
I'm
I can
tolerant, but I don't like when other people do all these things. It's like okay, or I don't tolerate all these things. Like wait, then you're not tolerant then.
I mean, I can totally see where people are coming from because I draw a lot of questionable stuff. I get that. A lot of people come after me for it. But I mean, I used to be in their same boat. That's like I used to hate artwork like that. I thought it was evil and moral or immoral and stuff like that. I even would read my best friend when he would send me some questionable artwork. I'm like, "What are you doing, man? Stop sending that crap. It's wrong, man." And he'd be like, what are you so upset about? It's just a drawing and stuff like that." And then that was when I started to realize, maybe this ain't so bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not people always get confused. They think that just because you're okay with something doesn't mean that you personally like it. You know what I mean?
Right. And there's a clear line between liking the fantasization of something and being against it in real life. Like, I'm pretty sure the people who made Grand Theft Auto are against murder and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to making models of characters blowing each other up, yeah, sure, that's fun
Right, it's a
because it's not
fantasy.
real. Because it's not real, it's fun. But
Yeah.
in real life, that's when it gets serious. Like Tarantino, and he's made some of the most violent movies of all time, but he himself is a pacifist and doesn't encourage violence and is pretty much against it.
Right, right, because it's
Yeah,
a fantasy. And that's yeah, people don't really well the big argument that I keep hearing is that if you allow people to fantasize about it, then they'll do it in real life. But I don't believe that. I think that's the same argument as violent video games make you violent.
it's also the same argument as marijuana as the gateway drug, which no, it ain't.
Well, oh
It's
yeah, I mean even if it was though, you wouldn't stop people from doing something just because they might do something bad in the future. You know what I mean? It's like it doesn't really make sense. It's like gun ownership laws. Like, well, we should ban all guns because someone might shoot someone else. You know?
and it's exactly, and it's like, well, I can take my car and run people over as much as I want. Are we going to ban cars too?
Right? Yeah, yeah. So it's just an odd argument.
Yeah, the problem is that people need to start realizing uh the correlation or I don't know non-correlation. It's like the difference between fantasy and reality. if you do research, it's like the more porn and that kind of artwork got more mainstream attention, the lower sex crimes went down, and most positive sex positive countries have some of the lowest rape rates that are out there. So what does that tell you?
I haven't really looked into that specifically, but I'd believe it.
It's like all the European countries and stuff like that. My best friend's Romanian, and he's like they have like erotic massage parlors. It's like they have nudist beauty pageants, and he's never known anybody who's been raped. So there you
Hmm.
go.
Yeah. Well, I think that the whole sort of like sex crime thing is a little bit overblown in the U.S. anyway, because we have people now who basically report that they've been raped when it's really questionable if they have. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like they have sex and regret it, and then that's apparently is considered rape in some cases. And it's like that's a little bit odd.
Yeah. That's no.
So I don't know how accurate that is. I mean, it really depend on how you define rape and what a sex crime is anyway. You know.
Right. And because of Harvey Weinstein stuff like that recently, it's like now they're trying to find ways to regulate pornography and stuff like that. Like Florida recently tried to vote to have it declared a public health
Oh,
crisis.
I heard about that.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, we're gonna put uh films of people having sex in the same category as opioids and disease and all that. It's like, where are we going as a society?
Yeah. Yeah, people are very strange. A lot of the time I feel like we are kind of moving toward this almost utopian state where we have this good balance of freedom and safety. You know what I mean? But then other times people propose these really odd things that seem like they'd take us 10 steps back, like banning porn. So what now we're, in the 20s again or whatever. I don't know what time
Exactly.
it was where it's like showing ankle is considered like a sex crime, you know?
It was yeah, it was actually that's how pinup art started back in the early days because back in the early 1900s and 18, or late 1800s, pornography was illegal, and so to get around that, artists would draw pinups of sexy female ladies, and they could get away with it because that was technically artwork. So that's how the whole pinup art craze started.
Right.
There's always going to be worries around laws and stuff like that. So there's no point in regulating or going backwards.
Yeah, that going backwards, I just don't really understand. It's it every time any sort of problem happens, people get all freaked out and want to go to an extreme with it. Whenever there's a shooting, it's ban all guns. It's not.
Right.
Every people overreact constantly, and it's very irritating. I mean, when you look at like a shooting, when 25 people shot or killed, that's terrible. But you got to think about it in the grand picture. Like, how often does that happen? A couple times a year, and there's what 325 million people in the U.S. So
Yeah.
you have to look at it from that perspective.
I don't believe in owning guns personally. I mean, what I mean by that is I don't want a gun. I have no use for one.
Uh-huh.
So, but I'm not gonna tell other people you can't own guns because there's I believe in the Constitution, and whatever the Constitution says, everybody's entitled to those rights.
Hmm. Well, I mean, the main reason to own a gun, constitutionally, is to be able to rise up against a tyrannical government.
Right.
So that's what people forget. They're like, you don't need this. You don't need this. Well, what they call an assault rifle. It's not actually an assault rifle, but um, yeah, you don't need assault rifles. You don't need all this stuff. But it's like, well, yeah, you do.
Hmm.
They're not for hunting. People
Right.
have this like this idea that it's like, well, only reason that people say they're for hunting. No one says it's for hunting. anyone who owns a gun knows it's for self-protection against other people, specifically the government becoming tyrannical. And it's funny that the people who say that, the more like left-leaning people, are the ones that also say that the government is becoming tyrannical. They
Right.
think that Trump is a Nazi and he's like ushering in a Nazi regime. But then in the same breath, they're like, "Oh no, we're you shouldn't have guns though." Like, wait a second, you'd think
I
you'd be,
notice, yeah,
eh.
I notice when it comes to political views, a lot of them really contradict each other. Like conservatives claim to be about the Constitution and all stuff like that, and yet they throw hissy fits when it comes to like obscene media and stuff like that. It's like, oh, why can't we go back to the good old '60s where every sitcom was about values and the family and all it was everybody wore suits and ties and blah blah blah. Yeah, you also forget in that time that black people weren't allowed to vote.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. People are a little bit. I don't know. I guess I just always considered myself kind of outside of that, but
Right.
the more I think about it, being outside of the system is just kind of a liberal thing. So I'm just more liberal, even though I never really thought about it like that.
I found myself more being centrist. I just believe the government should be out of people's faces.
Yeah. Well, here's hoping. Yeah. So getting onto a different topic, animation. I've always wanted to be an artist first of all, and then an animator. And I wanted to ask, is it basically if you know how to draw, then you basically know how to animate, or is there a lot more to it?
There is a lot more to it because, excuse me, there's a lot more to art than knowing how to draw well. When it comes to animation, it's like you got to know how to simplify the human figure to where you can animate it from for several frames and make it move. And it was a common discussion in my animation classes in college, like would Da Vinci and Michelangelo have been good animators? And we always thought no, because they were too good of artists that they wouldn't have been able to they wouldn't have been able to draw multiple figures and get them to move because they were too focused on the realism and details of the human figure. So when it comes to animation, it comes to knowing how to exaggerate and simplify that. There's like 12 principles of animation that Disney animators came up with back in the day that pretty much is the blueprint of learning how to animate.
Hmm.
And I believe the since I study animation and started to become an artist, I think that the rules of animation can also apply to art because there's exaggeration, appeal, and knowing how to make make things look good basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I noticed that, and that's one of the reasons why the the cartoons that come out are all very simplified. People make fun of it with the like Steven Universe. Everything looks like Steven Universe now.
Yeah, that they call it the quote unquote Cal Art style, even
Cal
though
art style. There you go.
yeah, because Cal Arts is like the best animation school in the US and a lot of famous animators go there. But what people don't realize is that a lot of people who are making cartoons now didn't even go to Cal Arts. Like there's a famous chart that shows all these modern cartoon characters with bean shaped heads. There's Steven, there's Gumball, there's Star from Star versus the Forces of Evil. And then there was another one I can't, or Dipper Pines from Gravity Falls. It's like only two of those people, the creator Star and the creator Gravity Falls, went to Cal Arts. Rebecca Sugar of Steven Universe went to the School of Visual Arts in New York, and then Gumball was made in the UK. So the
Right.
creator of that didn't even come to America to learn or to go to college. So and it's just a common thing like that. But I think it's just that's just an easy way to make an appealing character because all those characters are kids, and kids are often associated with having bean shaped heads with big eyes. So that's just the common blueprint of drawing kids' characters.
I I guess I figured it had something to do with ease of animation, not really a preference for that specific style, but more just because something about it made it easy to animate.
Right. And it does. It's like that's why a lot of modern cartoon characters they don't have joints.
They
They
have
can be
noodle arms.
yeah, they can be drawn using basic shapes, and you know, if it works for them, it works for them. I don't mind.
I want to draw, furry characters, and I want to do animations that are just kind of silly little
Sure.
things, but I don't know. I'd have to spend a lot of time. It seems like I'd have to take years and years out of my life learning how to draw, and I just don't really have the time or focus necessary to do that.
Yeah, if you want to become a great artist, it really takes a good majority of your time.
I don't necessarily want to become a great artist is the thing. I want
Oh,
to do like animations. Like with that sort of simplified style. I just wonder how hard is it to draw and animate in that sort of like Cal Art simplified style.
it depends on who you talk to because a lot of people they make it look easy. Well, a lot of people they struggle with it. It's mostly about studying the human anatomy and knowing what you want to simplify and what you want to exaggerate. Because, for example, it's like a head. Like if you want to take a head and simplify it, you just make it a circle. And that's an example of that. And when
Mhm.
it comes to animating, it's about studying movement and what you want to do, and just simplifying it and exaggerating it from there.
Do you think that it's something that can be self-taught, or do you think it's something I'd have to take classes for?
Oh, you definitely don't need classes, but watching tutorials and studying how your favorite cartoons how they move that'll help you quite a lot.
Hmm.
Classes really aren't necessary unless you wanted people to critique your art and get expert advice from professionals. But if you're if you got people who you can talk to online who can you can say, hey, can you take a look at this and give me pointers, and they know what they're talking about, then you can get some critiques that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, the good thing about being a fur is it's kind of a tight-knit community, so I know plenty of artists and animators.
Well,
Um,
there you go.
so that would be cool. Yeah. So that's good news. At least I could start, I guess. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know. I just don't know if I want to put forth the effort because it's such a task, and to fail at a task is like such a blow to like self-esteem. So if it's a task that you don't think you can accomplish, it almost feels like it's better to not even try.
I think failure is more, contributes more to success than anything else because failure means you're trying something new. You're stepping into unfamiliar territory. So you're always trying to better yourself. And you might fail at it, but at the same time, you come out of that experience with a lot more knowledge than you have if you didn't try it. If that's a little motivation for you.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just have
It's just easy for me to say because I've taken a lot of risks in my not just my career but my life. So, and I've always come out with some knowledge and all
yeah.
my projects. If you're interested in cartoons, what are some of your favorites?
Um, what are some of my favorite cartoons?
Yeah,
Wow, my favorite cartoons.
never thought of that, have you?
No, not really. I mean, there's plenty of anime that I like, but I don't. I
Oh,
like
that's fine.
anime, but I don't think I'd want to draw in an anime style. I feel like it's detail. I just feel like it's weird for me to draw in an anime style. Like it's a type of art that is done by people who are like have been doing it for a long time, and they're very professional at it, and anything I do would just be an imitation. You know what I mean?
Well, that's how all artists start out. They always start out imitating the artist they look up to.
I suppose, yeah, but I
Yeah,
I feel like I'd want to do it in my own style, in a
right.
sort of like more almost like comic book style.
Oh, okay.
Or if we're talking about simple animations, as sort of that webcomic style, which, funny enough, is very close to that sort of like simplified CalArts looking thing, the typical webcomic. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So something like that, or just webcomics in general. Since I don't know, I make YouTube videos, but a lot of the time I feel like I could get across a point in a minute long video, but that's not what people want to see. People want to see these long, like 10-minute plus videos. So if I want to
Yeah.
just say some quick thing, it's I just make a tweet about it. But it's like, wow, how much more interesting would it be if I could make like a little web comic that said the same thing that I could say in a tweet or like a 1-minute video? And
Oh, yeah.
that's my thoughts on it anyway.
Oh, yeah. Webcomics are pretty popular, especially the ones that a lot of people can relate to.
I don't know if people would be able to relate to my web comics. They'd be so weird.
Well, people like weird stuff too, so never know unless you try.
Yeah. Oh, but sorry, we got way off topic. Going back to what cartoons do I like?
Yeah.
Cartoons. Okay. Well, I did watch all of the current episodes of Steven Universe, so I guess it's fair to say that I like that.
Okay.
Uh, non-anime cartoons that I like. That's a hard one. I guess over the years, stuff that I've liked.
Yeah, just stuff you watched a lot growing up or now.
I liked Gargoyles. I
Oh,
remember,
that was great. That was
remember
great.
that show?
Yeah, actually, funny story. I actually didn't like that show as a kid because I
Uh-huh.
always felt bad for the gargoyles
Oh no.
because the humans treat them like shit, and I'm like, "Mommy, I don't want to watch this. They're so mean."
Yeah.
I couldn't stand it, but then I grew up. I'm like, "Oh yeah, racism's a thing."
Yeah. I think I just liked them because they were sexy. I don't know. But I was like a kid, so it's weird, but I think that's probably why.
Gotta love that Brooklyn.
Oh, I was gonna say Digimon, but that's anime. Dang.
Oh well, it could be animation or anime. I don't care. I like
Um,
both.
well, the new Pokemon, I don't know if it's new and considered new anymore. Whatever season it was where like the X and Y generation, I think, they kind of moved away from a super anime style into this like more kind of floaty, like American cartoon looking.
Yeah, I get. I know what you're talking about. They really simplified it more and made it more cutesy.
Yeah, I kind of like that too. I like the animation that people were complaining about it. I was like, "What do you like? This is great. What are you talking
Yeah,
about?"
I
It's
thought it
like
looked
not.
good.
It looks good. It's like exaggerated. They take frames from it, and be like, "Oh, look how stretched and weird it looks." It's like, yeah, because it's
Yeah,
animated more. You can't take one
yeah,
frame out of the animation and be like, "Oh, look how shitty and off model this is." It's
yeah.
like,
I take an issue with people who do that. It's like, oh, look at this bad animation. You take a friggin' in between. It's obviously gonna look bad because it's meant to be emotion.
yeah,
God,
it's part of emotion. That's actually what makes it good. That's what they don't
yeah,
understand is the being able to stretch and distort and make it look like that. Whereas normal anime doesn't do that as much.
yeah. It's like people who don't know what they're talking about think they know everything. It's like, no, no.
And plus, so yeah, that I mean, if we're gonna, I mean, it's still anime, but whatever. I like that just that season that of Pokemon. I only watched a few episodes, but I liked what I saw anyway. And what are some other ones? Like old cartoons. See, I'm cartoons before I knew what anime was. Because after I knew what anime was, I only watched anime. But before I knew what anime was, like Darkwing Duck and DuckTales, all the duck cartoons. Why are there so many duck cartoons in like the 90s?
I honestly don't know because ducks are a bitch to draw, so I don't know how the hell they were able to draw them so well.
Yeah, they're such a weird fascination with the ducks. But yeah. What other cartoons did I like? I guess I liked Ed, Ed, and Eddy. I always thought it was just very strange, but I guess that's kind of what people like about it.
Yeah, it was very down to earth, but also surreal at the same time.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, the
Also, yeah,
the
also reminded
music.
us. Yeah, it reminded us of childhood. It's like I'm sure every kid growing up drew a face on a piece of board and called it plank at one time. I know I did.
Yeah, very strange. It's hard for me to even think. Oh, another duck show. Mighty Ducks. All the duck show. I like that one too, but I always felt really bad. That was like
Why'd you feel bad? Because it was a guilty pleasure or something?
no. With Mighty Ducks in the first episode, their like leader dies, and the
Oh,
whole show is about. Well, I would say the whole show because it was kind of a episode to episode plot, but uh there are several episodes where they like tried to get their leader back because he like got thrown into like the abyss or something, right? So I don't know, I always that show always made me feel bad and weird, but whatever. So many duck cartoons.
yeah. I guess because Donald Duck was popular, it's like, no, ducks, that's the hot ticket. Anything with a duck in it is popular.
Yeah, I think it started with the DuckTales. They're like, that's popular. Then they're like, let's make another one,
Yeah,
Darkwing Duck, and then oh, you know what else I used to watch was Goof Troop. I always thought that show was kind of boring, but I still watched it anyway.
right. Because it was more of a suburban sitcom more than a cartoon.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, so you asked me about my favorite cartoons. I've named a few. So what's your like analysis of that?
I'm a well. You said you were more into anime, so it makes sense why it's hard for you to think of cartoons that you were into. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's pretty healthy batch of cartoons, like I say.
Yeah, I haven't watched them in
Y-
recent
Yeah,
years.
you seem to like the cartoons that are mostly about animals.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's how it starts with furries, I think, is originally and, still to this day, furries were just about if you liked anthropomorphic animals. Like originally furries were just called like funny cartoon lovers or funny cartoon animal lovers or something similar to that, because it was
Okay,
like Bugs Bunny and things like that. And and I always liked that, but I didn't even know what a furry was. And then it just like in my like later years, it just kind of clicked. Like, oh right, that's I like cartoon animals, and that's just what I have a sort of fascination for. I just never really realized it.
so let me ask you something. It's like, what do you need to be considered a furry? For example, it's like if I were to find a character like Crystal from Star Fox sexy,
Uh
would that mean I'm a furry, or is there more to it than that?
huh. Well, that's all right. I would say that being a furry isn't like a yes or no thing. It's more like kind of like a checklist, and if you have a certain number of things, the more things you have checked on that checklist, the more likely you are that you're a furry.
Okay,
Is what I would say. And
okay.
at the end of the day, it's more like, are you? The question is, are you a furry? If yes, then yes. If no, then no. But if you have enough things on that checklist and you say no, then we just call you a furry in denial. Um,
Oh, okay.
but yeah, like some of those things, yes. Liking cartoon animals, that's one thing. But everybody likes
Well,
cartoon
it's only
animals.
certain ones, like the ones that I only like the ones that have like human-like features. I'm attracted to, like the artwork, like the fan art people make of Amy Rose. It's like they always give her boobs and a vagina. It's like, okay, I like that. I like that, but but when it comes to like regular design, it's like, oh no,
Right.
yeah,
Right. Well, yeah, Sonic characters are not very attractive in general. But I
right,
mean, anything can be drawn attractive. That's the rule, you know.
right, right,
But yeah, okay, so yes, being like sexually attracted to the when I say cartoon animals, I'm talking about like anthropomorphic cartoon animals. So
okay,
that can either mean that, anthropomorphic in its like basic traditional definition of that just means having any human characteristics. Like if it talks, it's anthropomorphic, Um,
right,
but usually when we say anthro, we're talking about having human features. So we're talking about a character like Amy Rose or Crystal, um, where it's like a human in a animal skin, basically.
right.
Uh, that's a big one. That's a big indicator. Uh,
Okay.
that you might be a furry. It's one of those you might be a redneck type situations. Um, definitely having a persona is a big one.
Right.
I
Yeah, I
think
noticed a lot of furries have like animals as their avatars.
yeah, yeah. If you have that, that's kind of like the clincher. You know, I would
Okay.
say that anyone who has a persona and that they role play with using that persona in any fashion, doesn't have to be sexual role play, it can just be, you know, whatever. That's a furry in its like most basic form. If you have a persona and you role play with it and you don't call yourself a furry, you're pretty much a furry in denial. That's about that's about the
Okay.
gist of that. Um yeah, so you know, having a sexual attraction to some of these characters is not doesn't necessarily make you a furry because honestly, they're drawn to be attractive. You know,
Right.
Crystal was drawn to be attractive, or I guess rendered because she's a
That
3D
that
model.
was like, yeah, that was like the first animal character when I was a kid. I'm like, why is this turning me
Yeah,
on?
why is she
It's a
so sexy?
fox. It's a
Yeah.
fox. I'm not supposed to like foxes.
Or Renamon from Digimon is the same way. She was drawn to
Oh
be sexy,
yes.
like the way she walks and
Yeah.
her voice. It's like okay, they're trying to they're trying to
Ruin a
make me
whole
a furry
generation.
here.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
trying to ruin a whole generation of kids.
exactly.
I think
Gosh,
Mirage from Aladdin didn't help either.
what one?
Oh, I don't know if you're familiar with. She was like this cat villain from like the show they made based off Aladdin, and she's basically a walking and talking cat with a sexy voice, and she like has human features, but she's a cat, and her yeah.
Oh,
Oh, do you know
wow.
what I'm talking about?
I've seen so much porn of her, but I didn't know that she was from Aladdin. I remember
Yeah,
that cartoon. I like that the Aladdin animated series.
yeah. That was Mirage.
Oh wow, I didn't know that she was from that. Yeah, I've seen a ton of porn of her, so
Oh yeah.
yeah, she's cute.
Oh yeah.
Um, so yeah, they draw them sexy. I mean, come on. Okay, so in the Lion King, right now they're all like feral animal. They're still anthropomorphic in that they talk, but their like body structure is like quadrupedal, which for in furry lingo is feral, even though that's not exactly what it means. But
Right.
uh, and they're you know, and the lions are Nala was like drawn to be sexy, which is weird,
Yeah. It's
but
all in that face.
it's all in that face and in the rolling around with Simba while sex music plays in the background. It's like there's something's going on here.
Yeah, she
They
even gives Simba the bedroom eyes in one scene. I'm like, what?
yeah,
No,
exactly.
I was watching that in its old. I'm like, Disney, what is wrong with you?
Exactly. So can you really blame us furries for finding it attractive? It was made to for people to find attractive for whatever reason.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I don't think what I'm saying is I don't you don't have to feel bad if you are into that because it was designed for you to be into it, and I don't necessarily think you're a furry
Right,
or
right.
or uh for liking that sort of thing.
Yeah, because I went through the same thing. It's like in school or just online, I always found myself being more attracted to cartoon characters rather than real life people. And then people would give me crap for that. I'm like, do you see what I'm seeing? Look at that design and tell me I'm not supposed to be attracted to that.
Well, yeah, and I mean even if we're talking about non-furry characters, cartoon characters in general are usually they're just they're drawn cleaner, I guess.
Yeah.
Everything is like cleaner than real life. So it's hard to explain, but it's like I don't know. There's certain like fuck. It's hard to explain what I'm even
Well,
trying to say.
I can explain. I can explain. Like going back to what I was talking about concerning appeal and exaggeration. It's like they're drawn to accentuate all the features we like in humans. Like, oh, make the eyes bigger, make the cheeks rounder, give them a little cute smile, stuff like that.
Hmm. Right. You can draw them perfect, however your
Yeah.
fantasy is, and then you know, especially in I mean, I will in a lot of cartoons, we only see them as characters, right? And we fall in love with the characters. We don't really see them as fully like fleshed out people, because people have aspects that we like. They have aspects that we don't like. But if we only ever see the aspects that we like, that's a character, and
Right.
that's what we see in these cartoon characters, and that's why we're so attracted to them, because we only see aspects that we like.
Exactly.
So, that's yeah, and I'm talking about as far as like personality goes.
Uh-huh.
So I guess you were asking all of these things are you concerned that you might be a furry?
No, I'm not concerned. I was just curious. I didn't. And that's. I honestly, I don't care. It's like,
Right.
it's like whatever people jerk off to in their own free time is none of my business.
Well, it's like being a furry. It's not just about jerking off to
Right.
anthropomorphic animals. Like a lot of the whole furry thing is what people don't really see is that it's kind of about having a community where you can just kind of be yourself, and furries aren't really bound to the same sort of like social stigmas that the people outside the community are.
Uh
Like
huh.
when you okay, the best way I can explain it is just meeting someone new. Like when you meet someone new online, there's always like this, people are really like standoffish and like, what do you want from me, what do you kind of kind of deal when you meet someone new a lot of the time. But inside the
Hmm.
furry community, it's more like everyone is ready to call you their best friend immediately. And it's kind of weird to get used to, but at the same time it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like it's kind of nice to just like have this sort of like like uh, uh like closeness with people that you've never met.
Right.
I don't know, it's and that's what, even though it's not like in the description of being a furry exactly, that's kind of what it's about, I feel.
Right. Yeah,
uh
I was just curious and wanting to do my own research because I've seen a lot of internet reviewers and YouTubers make fun of furries and stuff like that,
hmm.
and watched a few furry cringe compilations, and then I discovered your videos and I saw how it was this massive community of really nice people. I'm like, huh, maybe
Yeah,
there's more to these people.
well,
And
it's funny, the furry part of furries is like surface level. That's surface level furry, is dressing up in fursuits and like
right,
drawing porn of Crystal. That's like surface level furry. What it really comes down to, why I stayed in the community, is like I said, this kind of closeness to people that you've never met, and knowing
uh-huh,
that anyone can be your friend, and it's not about trying to get something from somebody. It's
of
more just
course,
like it's it's like you can kind of drop a lot of your guards when you talk to people in the
yeah,
furry community, and
yeah,
just kind of be yourself, and say whatever crazy shit is on your mind, whatever crazy fantasies you have, and nobody's going to really judge you for it.
yeah. That's kind of like how the art community is.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I would imagine
Yeah,
that it's similar in the like kind of artist community, because artists, well, we were talking about like we were talking about earlier, artists kind of are, imaginative, maybe draw things that are kind of taboo and don't care. So I imagine it's a
right.
lot like that in the furry community. So I
Uh huh.
imagine it's the same in like the kind of artist community.
Yeah, I was also curious because I'm a brony, if you know what that is, and
Yeah.
they often get lumped up with furries, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute, I just watched the cartoon. I don't get participate in any of that stuff.
Well, I
Because
mean,
yeah,
if you consider yourself a brony, that is like a subcategory of furry.
I thought brony just meant you were a fan of the show. I didn't know if it went deeper than that.
I mean, you can be a fan of the okay. Well, here's another thing. Like, what makes you a brony? That's what it comes.
Right.
Same question. What makes you a brony? Do you have to have a what would you call it? Pony sona or something to be a brony? Is it just liking the show? Because I mean, you can call yourself a brony if you want. Like I'm just
Yeah.
going off of my definition. Like
Okay.
I don't think I would call people who just like the show bronies. I think
Oh.
I think that I would call people who are. It's kind of like furries. If I think about it from the same perspective of furries, like I wouldn't consider myself a furry just because I like anthropomorphic cartoon animals or shows with
Okay.
anthropomorphic anthro cartoon animals in them. So I wouldn't consider myself a brony just for liking My Little Pony, but uh I would if I had like some kind of like fursona or pony sona or whatever you guys call it.
Right. So it's one of those things where you have to be really active in the community to be considered a
I don't
to,
know.
to
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if there is a solid definition. Like I don't really I don't know. That's kind of a whatever the group's consensus is on what makes you a brony, you know?
right.
But I would consider bronies a subcategory of furries because it's like okay. I want to tell you a story.
Okay.
When the movie Zootopia came out, they were a group of people who started role playing, and they had what they called zoosonas, which were animals, and they would role play. They would have their zoosona, and they would role play as if they were in the world of Zootopia, right? And
All right.
they adamantly refused to call themselves furries. Okay,
Okay.
but everyone who was a furry was like, okay, you're a subcategory of furries, right? And that's how I see bronies too. Like bronies can say, "Oh, we're not furries," but you kind of are. It's the same. You're doing the same thing, just in a more specialized way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it's
I,
kind of like a subgenre in
yeah,
a
yeah.
way.
So subgenre of furry. Kind of like how the scalies are, people call them, because I'm not, I'm a dragon. My character's like a quadrupedal uh feral or whatever dragon,
Right.
and so I'm not really a furry, but I'm still a like a subcategory of furry,
Right.
because there's a whole like dragon community that a lot of them aren't. Well, you know what otherkin are, right?
Uh, I remember seeing one of your videos on them, but I can't remember what it meant.
It's more like a spiritual thing. Like
Oh yeah.
anyway, if you don't know what it means, it doesn't matter. We'll just say so. There's a whole like community of mostly like dragons, and a lot of them don't consider themselves furries, but they act and look and are essentially just another sub genre of furries. So it's
Yeah.
like okay.
So so those are the furries in denial.
Well, yeah, I mean they're all furries in denial. The bronies and the zootopians and the whatever.
Well, I was just on a podcast last Sunday when we were talking about which pony we'd fuck. So
See, yeah, I knew it. See, yeah, you're a furry. You just don't realize it.
no. Oh well, I don't care.
Yeah. So which pony would you fuck?
Fluttershy, I said.
Uh
I I have this kink where I like the shy girl with big titties. So
huh.
usually when I draw her, I give her big titties. I just like that trope for some reason. I
Yeah.
guess because that goes back to anime. They always have the big-breasted, pink-haired character who's got the quiet, whispery voice, and she's like, "Oh hi, Linda."
Yeah. Well, she does seem like the type to have big titties, definitely.
Yeah,
She's like the sort of like mothering, nurturing type,
yeah,
which also would lends itself toward big tits.
right. And usually when I make artwork, I usually give small titties to my tomboyish characters because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the athletic type and all the tomboyish girls they usually look like males. So yeah, there you
Right.
go.
Yeah. Well, whatever. The with art, the or you want to accentuate the character's personality with the artwork,
Right.
which
You're
is
catching on.
well, I've known that, but a lot of
Yeah.
people are like, why is this character like not this way? And it's like, well, they wouldn't, or like, why does this character, why does every character that's, I don't know, what's a way to put this? All right, or here's something. Like,
Yeah.
why is this character, why is every character that's gay, why do they look super gay? And it's like, well, because that's like the art is to
Right.
like accentuate their like personality or whatever traits about them make them a character, whatever traits are important to them for the show. So if they didn't look gay at all, and then were a gay character, it'd be kind of like there'd be like a dissonance there, you know?
Right. And there's more than one ways to draw a gay guy. You have bears, you have twinks, and yeah.
Right, but
So yeah.
yeah, but it's like it's never people get confused, and I understand it's not like a stereotype thing exactly. It's not like a
No.
it's just a it's a visual it's visual information, you know.
Exactly. Right.
And so it's important to draw characters in a way that kind of shows their personality.
Yeah, the design really says a lot about the character. That's the secret to good character design. You want it to make it to where somebody who doesn't even know who your character is can look at them and know what they're about just by looking at them.
Right, yeah. And people
Yeah.
get that confused because they think, like, oh, you think all people like this in real life look like this. But it's like, no, that's not the case. It's just, it's just in a visual in a visual media, we have to, yeah, we have to show it, you know.
Uh huh.
And people, yeah, and they're not real people, they're drawings. So
Exactly.
people, that's the big thing that you have to remember
Exactly.
that people don't seem to remember.
Right.
Yeah, I want to pick up drawing, but I need like a tablet or something.
Well, save your money. That's all I can say. The
Yeah,
cheapest one I got was $100.
for a tablet.
Yeah, it was the smallest one I could find.
Hmm. I want one that's at least this the size of like a piece of paper, like an iPad type thing, you know,
Oh, sure, sure, they make those.
and draw on that. But people keep telling me that they're not good for drawing, but then I know artists who use those exclusively. So
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't matter what. It, Another famous quote: "It doesn't matter what tools you have; it's what you do with them that matters."
right.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, to a degree. If it doesn't work, then it
yeah.
doesn't work.
Obviously, it's gonna work, but if it's a working tool, then who cares what kind of tool it is, as long as you can use it.
Well, you know, when I used to draw back in high school, I just used paper. Like I had like a sketch pad, and then I would scan it, but it always looked like shit. So
Yeah,
part of the reason I did that is because I didn't really understand the programs. Like I had a tablet back then, but
right.
I didn't really understand. It had like built-in like Photoshop or whatever, right? So it's like, where's the just draw with a pencil tool? Why do I have to use this like weird like ink smears and shit? I don't.
Yeah, Photoshop is more used for image manipulation and stuff like that. I know a lot of artists who use it and use it well, but it doesn't have a stabilizer. And for somebody like me, it's like I need stabilizers to make good art.
Stabilizers? What's that?
Yeah, it's a tool that comes in programs like Paint Tool SI or Clip Studio. Basically, it when you use your pen, it can slow down how fast your pen's going to make your lines look smoother.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
with Photoshop, it's like you try to draw in it, and it's like your lines look all wobbly and stuff like that.
Hmm. I didn't even know about that. Well, we're coming up on the hour mark here. It's
Okay.
already, you know, it's doesn't seem like it's been very long.
No, it hasn't.
So is there anything else that you want to talk about, or you know, want to like plug or anything like that before
Other
we
than
head
my
out?
yeah, other than my stuff, find me on YouTube, Ben the Looney. Follow me on Twitter at Ben the Looney, and then my Tumblr, Ben the Looney Doodles.
Okay. Do people still use Tumblr?
I do.
Okay. Is it more like an artist thing now?
I follow a lot of artists on it, but I'm sure that practically everybody has a Tumblr that they use to post pictures and videos and stuff like that.
That's true. Yeah, I post my YouTube videos on there, but I think like 4 people follow me on Tumblr. I'm like, this must be like a dead platform because pretty much anywhere else I post, I have at least a couple
Yeah,
hundred followers.
I'm finding that weird. It's like I'm finding it weird to catch my feed on some other forms of social media. Like I have like almost 24,000 subscribers, and yet I only have like 700 Twitter followers, and my Tumblr is starting to gain ground. It's like almost to 800. So
Yeah,
I guess it just takes a while to get your feet wet on other social media platforms, even if people know who you are.
Twitter's super weird. Like, okay, um, so there's a furry called Majira Strawberry, and he has like 100,000 subs on YouTube, and then he has like 50,000 followers on Twitter, right? So I was like,
Right.
okay, well, maybe I can expect about half, but no, it's like maybe 5% of the my like Twitter followers or
Yeah.
YouTube subscribers follow me on Twitter. It's very strange. I'm not sure what the difference is.
Well, I guess the way to think about it is like, I mean, you have people you're subscribed to on YouTube. It's like, how many of them do you follow their Twitter of? It's like, it's easier to put your own situation in the shoes of the people who follow you because then you're like, oh well, I guess it makes sense why I wouldn't have as many followers.
Yeah, I guess. But I do follow most of the people that I'm subscribed to. I do follow on Twitter. The only
Oh,
ones I
okay.
don't are the ones who have proven to like abuse their Twitter powers by just posting dumb bullshit all the time. Yeah, so we kind of got sidetracked again. Yeah, so everyone follow BenTheLooney on his social media and watch his YouTube videos. They're pretty good. They're a lot of them are similar to mine, especially when he's talking about art and kind of freedom of expression.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So,
And one more thing. I'm
mhm.
not a pedophile.
Okay.
Speaking of which, have you ever gotten any crap for that video you made on pedophilia?
Oh, sure. I mean, I've made like 2 or 3 videos,
Right.
not
So
specifically about pedophilia, but like kind of talking about it. And then I've plenty of podcasts like this one where we mention it. I don't think anyone actually thinks that I'm a pedophile. I think they're like, they're upset that I'm okay with artists. A few people are upset that I'm okay with
yeah,
artists being able to draw whatever they want, which seems odd, but
I guess it's just one of those things where you don't know if people are being genuine or they're just trying to get a rise out of you.
yeah, who knows. Anyway, I want to thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. It was lots of fun.
Yeah, it sure was. We should do it again sometime. I
Oh
have
well,
kind of a line, but we could get we do it again sometime soon.
whenever you have another guest opening, I'd be happy to fill it in for you.
Cool.
Hmm.
So yeah, I will see you later then. Thanks again for coming, and everybody watching, thanks for doing so. I'll see you later.
Stay loony, my friends.